Game of Death is the bloodiest, funniest, freakiest film I've seen this year. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I am pleased to talk to the co-directors of a film called Game of Death. This is not the Game of Death with Bruce Lee. This is a completely different film, Game of Death. I actually think that this film, the title fits it much better. Let's talk to both co-directors that are, I'm dialing in here from Canada. We have Laurence Morais and Sebastien Landry. Hopefully I pronounced that right, gentlemen.
That's the best we've heard it since the beginning of the all our interviews. Well
that's good to hear. Well, I grew up in Michigan, like right outside of Canada. So I feel like I watch a lot of Canadian children's programming. So I feel like I got a taste of it. And I love Canada, not only for its beer, but the hockey, appreciation of hockey. And now this horror film that, oh my God, it played at South by Southwest, was a huge hit. And this movie is just, it's freaky. It's, first of all, it's a very simple story of a bunch of kids on a vacation and they find this weird board game they decide to play, but it has disastrous results. I mean, it's worse. It's a Ouija board that kills you or forces you to kill. I love that you wove in a moral dilemma with this game. I don't know anything about the behind the scenes of this project, so I'm coming in cold. Laurence, Sebastien, just tell me, where did this thing come from? How did you both come up with this concept, put this all together?
Me and Sebastien have been working together for the past more than 10 years, and we've been like evolving from internet culture, internet videos, to making more. Sebastien came from more scripted, more cinema background, and we kind of team up and did a lot of experience into cinematography and short movies. And at one point, we created a short called La Chienne, Caged in English. It was a short horror movie. It was our first test into the horror genre. And we like to test different things, and we really enjoyed it. And it went, like, it got some recognition. It got some prize. It won some prize. And you know how it is when you do something that is that gets some attention. People are like, okay, we want to see more. What's next? And we got asked by some producer if we had any project more for horror, gore. And me and Sebastien really wanted to go deeper into that world. And we just started to brainstorm together about what kind of movie we would like to make into that genre. And that story just got created from endless meetings together and just having fun, you know?
Yeah, Sebastien, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no.
Oh, I think we lost you. Oh no, I think we lost you. I can't hear you on the mic. This is the world of streaming now. No, can't hear you. Oh, dang. Well, try going into your settings. Maybe we can get Sebastien back here. Maybe you can leave and come back. That sometimes helps it. This is the world that we live in now with technology. But Laurence, I was really struck by how bloody this movie is. I mean, the only recent movie I could even maybe compare it to is, I hope you maybe take this the right way, is Tokyo Gore Police. Tokyo Gore Police is perhaps, wait, do we have Sebastien back? Here he is.
Hi.
Hey, Sebastien.
Hey.
Back. Cool.
Yeah.
So I was saying that the gore in this movie is just beyond. It's just to these levels where it's, I was saying maybe Tokyo Gore Police is something I might compare it to, just in terms of the level of gore. It's not anything like the story of that film, but it's just this, I mean, and also it has kind of a graphic novel feel. It feels like a really good comic book graphic novel, the movie. So clearly with so many VFX, practical effects mix of that, there had to, a lot of planning had to go into each of the kills. I don't want to ruin any of them for the audience, but they are so over the top. This is a movie that you have to see, you have to get just to believe it. But what went into planning each of the kills? I mean, some of them are just really over the top.
Yeah, so I guess the thing we did, we separated it by chapters. So each kill, we wanted to say, okay, so let's hit this kill. How can we make it as cool as possible, but also as practical as possible? That was like one of our mission. We wanted to make it feel that it was real. So Remy Couture, who is the artist behind the FX, we had him on board at like day one of those idea. So with them, we just challenge where could we go, and that's basically the story
Exact,
behind it.
exactly. And there were also the Blood Brothers
Yeah,
that manage all the blood. They're called the Blood Brothers, and their company are specialized in VFX, practical effects. And with Remy Couture, Sebastien, the Blood Brothers, and me, at some point we're like, okay, you guys, I've done so many deaths in movies. Like right now, here's our deaths. Is there anything we could push? Even anything we could go farther? So kind of, we created this little bubble of experts of deaths in movies to make our deaths even more crazy.
Well,
that was fun meetings.
well, it's interesting that you put it in chapters because I love the transition of as soon as there's a kill and a death, you see that the game kind of resets that clock, that graphic. What went into designing that game? I mean, it's a physical object, a prop that is used throughout the film. What went into designing it, and did you kind of fetishize over? Because it just looks like a lot of love and care went into that board game.
Yeah.
It's true. We're both fan of video games, and we're based in Montreal, and we work with many people around video games. And a friend of ours, Samuel Boucher, did a couple of video games, and one particularly called Nug for the PlayStation. And he's a really good designer. So we chat with him, and we went into design and production with him to like, how can we make it as real as possible, basically.
Yeah, and while working on the design, on the movie Game of Death, we knew like that game needed to be a character. It needed to be something strong, something powerful. And I don't know why, but every time we brainstorm, me and Seb, about a next project or another thing, the marketing aspect is often there also. We kind of understand like we high concept and strong titles, and it's part of our DNA, I think. So making this game as cool and good looking and a good piece of the movie was super important to us.
Well, it's really clear from just the vision and the marketing materials and just that the title sequences, like it just that a lot of love and care and thought. That's why I guess the only thing I compare it to is a graphic novel, and I feel like not every indie filmmaker considers those details. I mean, that really is sort of taking it next level. I kind of feel like I want a copy. I want that game. Like, is there thoughts of like any mass production for possibly a sequel? I feel like there's definitely a sequel, and it's like I want to see more. I want to know about the lore of the game because so much. There's so many questions that I have about it. Any thought to like making this game?
Yeah, that was a plan, but you know how it is sometimes. We put all the money into the movie,
right.
everything into what you saw, and after that, for the marketing objects and stuff like that, it was another story. But yeah, it was definitely something we wanted to do to produce that game, and maybe even like keychain with the game or stuff like that. But we're not there yet. Would be great in the future, but but if you talk about sequel, there's been we've been talking about different stuff. We have different ideas, maybe not into the origin story of the game, but there are some thoughts in there.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Just because what I love about the film, is the fact that it really puts you in a moral dilemma, right? We can talk about the gore effects and sort of the fun aspects of it, but really there's a more serious aspect that kind of takes over the film in the second half, where it just gets more heavy in the sense that really evaluating the moral choices that the characters are beginning to make. So I just appreciate that there's more weight to it. I mean, while I love gore in films, ironically, I guess, I love gore in films, but I appreciate a horror film that goes deeper layers. So how much of that was dealing with, I think the cast is great too. I mean, they're just like typical, look, fun teenagers that, you've got your types, but they're not super cliche. That's actually what I really liked about it. They're more well-rounded people, which, like I say, by the second half of the film really has more weight to it. Tell me what went into that thought process, because I think it really grounds the movie.
As for the good thing about,
oh, I think we lost you again, Seb. Oh man, technology. Well, wait, go and come back. But until then, Laurence, can you address like just the deeper layers of the film, and how that took hold? Because I think it just adds weight to everything that's happening, and I think it makes it a better movie. It's
Yeah, we really wanted to make not only a gore movie or a B series movie. It was super important for us to not fall into that. We come from music video scene. We come from more internet culture, and we loved horror movies since I'm young. The first movie I rented was Toxic the Avenger. So so you know where we come from. But we really wanted to have this movie to not just be, because we wanted to have a cartoon style. It's a Game of Death for me, that like the visual aesthetic is kind of cartoonish, but it was important for us to have that underlayer that was kind of inherent into the DNA of the movie without having too much to say it, that we have a dilemma. Hey, no, it's just in the DNA of the movie. And it was really important to us to make people have fun while watching the movie. But when they would go out of the theater, they could continue the conversation. Every time we see a movie that it touches us, it's that because there's a conversation that continues after seeing it. So it was important for us that Game of Death would do that. And hopefully it did for some people. That was like, okay, would you have killed? Would you save yourself by killing someone? So it was kind of something that was taught at the beginning of the concept.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
That's good to hear. Well, I'm curious what, I mean, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I watched it on my nice 4K TV, and it looked great, but I'm really curious audiences in a theater and how they react. I mean, obviously before, we live in lockdown land now, I guess. But having seen it with an audience previous to that, like what were their reactions?
It was so fun to watch people like. It started like, okay, people was interesting in the movie, but
Oh, no.
We lost you again, Seb.
I think it's that headset, Seb. But Laurence, can you address just the audience sort of participation, or just like, I mean, this is I mean, I could just feel like watching it, like, oh man, if I was in a theater with 100 other people, we would all be freaking out.
Yeah.
During sequences, especially when you've got almost like, I mean, most movies have like sort of a ticking clock at the end, right? This is a ticking clock like every 10 minutes, which and what's going to happen. Once you've kind of trained the audience in the beginning, we know what's coming. So what's it like then to see with an audience and experience it that way?
It was incredible. It was Sebastian's second feature. It was my first feature. And when we presented it at South by Southwest for the world premiere, I was like shaking. I was super stressed to see like people, how would they like it? Would they hate it? How would they react? And it was incredible just to see the reaction of like, all at the same time. And after that, it did a very good festival route all around the world, and to see like people in Brazil react the same way with people in South Korea, and it was such a blast, and we didn't know while making it, but after the festival route we realized, okay, we made a festival movie. It's really a movie that is made to be seen in the midnight section, and people scream and joy. And yeah, no, it's been really awesome to see the reaction of the people, and they were really intense. You know, that top shot when the guy gets hit by the car, and that top shot is like the every audience in the world reacted the same way, and every time we were waiting for that particular reaction.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, because it's just so shocking. And I love the fact that you put effort into making so many of the horror aspects original. We really haven't seen anything like this done this way, especially the ratcheting up of, when someone's head. Look, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to like turn this off and watch this interview later, the rest of this interview later. But when you're sort of ratcheting up, like, the time is about to run out and people's heads start to swell, the swelling and that anticipation, holy crap. Like, we've seen exploding heads in movies like, Dawn of the Dead and the, zombie movies, or Scanners. Yeah, Cronenberg. I was just thinking that, like, but you've never seen it done this way, where there's an anticipation. It's not just a shock. So,
and one super cool thing about that is that since everything was practical, like, you kind of lived that head swelling and that headaches. Like, we were there, and like the actors, and one interesting thing also, we shot chronologically the whole movie.
Oh, wow.
So the actors really, when there was a death, when there was something dying, a head exploding, he was not coming back. So the actors, since all those effects were practical, it was chronological, so people were dying. It was they had a really weird relation to acting those characters, because they were kind of living it in the real life, because they became friends. And when there was one people dying in the script, they were leaving in the real life the set. So it was kind of super intense for them also. And to play always, every morning we would splatter with a blood cannon all in their face. There were bees, and there was like, and the blood is made with sugar, so we were shooting with, it attracted bees and stuff like that. So it was a really intense shoot for them.
Do you want to say anything more on that? Seb, I really love the fact that, like, all the actors were just covered in blood. It's almost like it was just so intense they didn't have time to clean themselves up.
Yeah, it was, and it was very. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. Yes. Awesome.
Super. And I think it was also, like, visually, it was something like it's intense. And like Baz said, it was just like it gives that intense trip. It just you start, and then till the end, it's that you have to it's your new character. Your character is now with blood from your friends. It's kind of feeling. It's kind of weird.
Well, the movie is, I mean, it's weird to describe it as fun, but it is really fun. I mean, who knew that, like, a horror board game themed film would be as fun and gory as this. I'm just, like, so happy for your guys' success, and I'm ecstatic that Game of Death is now available on VOD, or by the time that people listen or watch this, it'll be available on VOD. And thank you for joining me on the Film Threat podcast. I also need to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. If you go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat, and you're a filmmaker, that is the place to go for all sorts of tools. And you guys, I really need to have you back on the podcast when your next movie comes out, because you are craftsmen. From the credits to just every detail of this movie is just so carefully crafted. I'm just blown away and amazed, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. So can you tell us what you're doing next? Is there any sort of tease about that you can talk about at all?
We're working on a new project called Deer Detective, and it's about a detective that is also a deer. That's it from that, but yeah.
Okay, I'm going to look forward to Deer Detective. That's awesome. Laurence and Seb, thank you so much for being on the Film Threat podcast. Game of Death is fantastic. It's probably my favorite horror film that I've seen this year. It's just super fun, and I hope I get to see it at a drive-in at some point. I think it's like a perfect drive-in movie too.
It'd be
Awesome.
amazing.
Thanks a lot, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.